morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Closer Look, the show dedicated to bringing you the facts. We ask the questions no one else will, and we get the answers that no one else can. I'm Arabina Apia. Thanks so much for joining us. On the radar this week, we're talking all things investments, local, foreign, and everything in between. With the global economy being what it is, Bahamians near and far are rightfully concerned about both the quality and quantity of the investments being entered into in and on behalf of the Bahamian people. Now, while I admit I was skeptical about what I would find in my research for this week's show, I was pleasantly surprised to uncover a few gems which I think are worth mentioning. Now, before I get started, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Arabina, these opportunities are probably just more sidewalks and roads and infrastructure, and that's great, but that's not going to directly help me. And you would be incorrect. Now you're probably thinking, well, these are probably some huge run-of-the-mill foreign hotel investments that are going to benefit the already rich and wealthy. And again, you'd be incorrect. And now you're probably thinking, well, I'm just a regular degular schmegular Bahamian with a dream, and there's no way that I can have access to the kind of funding or resources to make my dream a reality. And again, you would be incorrect. Now, I would like for the viewing public to take what I say next with a grain of salt, because I love Nassau just as much as the next person, but as a Grand Bahama girl, I think it's most important to note that there seems to be an intentional move to focus on islands that are not New Providence and sectors that are not just in tourism. You'll remember that 2 weeks ago, Bahamas Development Bank Chairman Senator Quinton Lightburn detailed his plans to create opportunities for Bahamians in the orange economy. And this past week, that culminated with the issuance of technology grants for 26 creatives. My IG feed was flooded with photos of my fellow creatives who were beaming with pride as they were presented new MacBook computers. Now, I myself am very much a PC kind of girl, but if you talk to these recipients firsthand, then you know that being afforded these kinds of resources can mean the difference between being good and being great. And as foreshadowed by the good senator, the Bahamas Development Bank is not stopping there. If you're a budding entrepreneur in the Family Islands, then you could qualify for up to $2,500 in grant money to support your next idea. The idea is to support Bahamian business development in Family Island communities. Whether that looks like starting a boutique museum that tells the history of your island for residents and visitors alike, or creating a line of specialty beverages from indigenous herbs, or even something in the area of ecotourism, all it takes is a submission. You can visit the web address on your screen right now and get the details, and you can thank me for the business ideas in the comment sections later. Now, if you're in the agriculture sector, then grants are also available to you as well. Maybe you're the kind of Bahamian who's ready to change the face of agriculture in the country. Maybe you have a vision of food security, and maybe this grant is the way you do that. Now, I'm not telling you what to do, but if I were already a student at BAMSI with at least 12 credits, I would head over to bamsibahamas.edu.bs and apply, because who doesn't want their dreams of an agriculture revolution funded by the government? If you've been paying attention, then you've probably also heard about the emergency relief funding which was provided to straw vendors and other tourism-based vendors on Grand Bahama in the sum of $500. Now, that may not sound like a lot to the average person, but think about a group of vendors, predominantly women who lead their households, women raising children, who've been fighting an uphill battle in an economy reeling from back-to-back hurricanes and major hotel closures, and you might have a completely different perspective. But let's say you're not a budding entrepreneur with dreams of revolutionizing agriculture, and you're not a part of the orange economy. There are still countless ways for you to fund your dreams with government support. Every year, students across the country are able to tap into scholarships which are available through the Scholarship and Educational Loan Division. And the process is simple enough. Just visit their website, scholarshipsbahamas.com, to access the scholarship portal, which is open between December 1st and March 31st of every year. Yes, I know. The deadline has already passed, but don't look at the glass as half empty, because now you know. Now you can plan. Now you can prepare to be ready to take advantage of the program next year. Honestly, I feel like Oprah. You get a grant, you get a grant, you get a grant. Everybody gets a grant. But maybe you're still skeptical. Later on in the show, we'll be sitting down with Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation, the Honorable Chester Cooper, who will join us to answer some tough questions about the unique ways that the government is investing in the Bahamian people and on behalf of the Bahamian people. So stay close. When we come back from the break, we chat with this week's millennial in government who also happens to be the country's Director of Investments, Phylicia Hanna. More in a moment.
Man, I ain't really got no time for no exercising though. I ain't gonna tell you no lie. I got this boy, he had to get ready for school in the morning. Then I got breakfast to cook and I gotta be on the road before that traffic start.
Yeah, but my corner is understandable, man. We gotta get in shape.
Alright then, I'll tell you what, I can pack some exercising clothes and I can see you tomorrow.
Regardless of your busy schedule, physical activity is important for your health. Whether you use 3 10-minute segments throughout your day to move, or schedule a 30-minute workout, you can make time to improve your health. Choose a fun workout session with your favorite group of friends. Choose a brisk power walk. Involve your family, or choose a relaxing yoga cool down by yourself. Get moving, Bahamas, and get fit for life. This message is brought to you by PAHO WHO, Bahamas and Turks and Caicos Islands, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and the Healthy Bahamas Coalition.
Welcome back. I'm Arabina Apia, and this is A Closer Look, the show which, among other things, shines a light on millennials in government making waves and changing the course of history. This week, I'm joined by a woman who is, quite frankly, a prime example of what happens when you give young women the reins. Let's go to our government correspondent, Jillian Gray, for a closer look.
When it comes to the Bahamas Investments Authority, most people only think about the international clients that it services. However, Director of Investments Phylicia Hanna tells us that they service both international and domestic investors, and there's no disparity in what they offer.
I think the primary misconception about investments is that the opportunity is different for foreign investors in comparison to domestic investors, and that's not true. The same concessions that are granted to foreign investors are also granted to domestic investors, or are available, I should say, to domestic investors. I like the fact that we are now moving away from the typical just resort development, touristic related projects. Although we continue to sustain them, we see an inflow of different types of investments in manufacturing, agriculture, all sorts of different ones throughout our entire archipelago, not just within New Providence, but the family of islands.
Coming in as the Director of Investments, Phylicia Hanna says she hit the ground running with the mandate to make the Bahamas Investments Authority a one-stop shop for both foreign and domestic investors.
Moving from the Bahamas Investment Authority into what we are now going to call Bahamas Invest. It's a process that I'm excited about. It's going to bring about a lot of changes. It's going to bring about promotion of the Bahamas as a premier jurisdiction for investments in our country, as well as it's going to put more meaningful investments on the table, making sure that the Bahamian public sees the trickle-down effect from investments.
Though some sectors plummeted during the pandemic, Hanna says the numbers show that investments fared pretty well.
Our numbers in government have shown that we performed fairly well during consistently and sustainably during the pandemic. Our numbers also, not just nationally but internationally, show that the Bahamas, in comparison to our Caribbean partners, has performed very well. Identifying how we can create more opportunities for Bahamians, not only just through jobs with investments. Everybody thinks that with foreign direct investments, the only thing that comes is construction jobs. No, we're focused on permanent jobs for Bahamians, new transfer of knowledge, new skill sets. We're also focused on new entrepreneurial opportunities for investors.
The focus now, according to Hanna, is fine-tuning their promotion roadshow. BIA has a plan to strategically market each island.
I always tell people our family of islands, each one has a different culture. We're making sure that we bring that to the global stage. We're continuously working to improve our product to improve our infrastructure on all of the family islands.
So if you're looking to invest in the Bahamas, reach out to the Bahamas Investments Authority and see what they have to offer you. I'm Jillian Gray. Back to you, Rab.
We are now joined in studio by Phylicia Hanna. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. You're so welcome. So you're the Director of Investments for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. You're a woman, and you're also the youngest woman to ever hold the role. That's a big deal.
So they tell me.
That's a really big deal. Congratulations. Those are
Thank
major
you.
accomplishments. But I understand that this is not your first rodeo. This is not your first time in government. So tell me about your previous roles in government and what drew you to the public service.
So no, it's not my first time in government. I'm just reintegrating into government actually after about 2 to 3 years out of government working in the private sector. I'm just returning. I've worked in a number of different agencies in the public sector. I've worked in the Department of Immigration, in their economic unit. I've worked in the Ministry of Financial Services. I've also worked in the Office of the Prime Minister when BIA's portfolio was under the Office of the Prime Minister. And now I'm delighted to be returning to the Ministry of Tourism, Investments and Aviation.
Awesome. So what legacy do you hope to leave as the youngest female Director of Investments for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas?
I hope to leave a legacy of one that fought for the Bahamian people, and when looking at any investment opportunity for our jurisdiction, I fought for equal rights for Bahamians, equality, equal opportunity, and that I was one agent of change for meaningful investments in our country.
Are there any challenges that you have had to overcome in this role that you could speak to?
I don't want to focus on challenges as much as I want to focus on the bright future that's ahead for our country with the Bahamas Investment Authority. We're currently undergoing a rebranding exercise that I'm excited about. You would have heard me speak briefly about it previously. We are rebranding our agency into what we will then call Bahamas Invest. It's one that I am happy that the Deputy Prime Minister, who's been tasked with the portfolio for investments, has entrusted me with, really. It's going to be one that is going to bring about real change in our country and make sure that what we facilitate is meaningful to our country. Investments that not only create opportunities through jobs, but through entrepreneurial opportunities and, just unique opportunities that provide a better quality of life for the Bahamian people.
Okay, and we heard in your package, in your interview with Jillian, about all of these unique opportunities. Now, I'm a Grand Bahama girl, and so I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, where do you see the nation's second city fitting into this sort of vision that you're creating?
Well, first of all, let me start by saying I'm not a Grand Bahama born, but I'm one that's moved to Grand Bahama.
Hello.
And I can't go home unless I have an opportunity for Grand Bahama on the table.
You know how we go.
And so, there are a lot of great things that I'm sure the Deputy Prime Minister will share with you as well, that is on the table for Grand Bahama. But Grand Bahama is one that I hold dear to me. And so having unique opportunities in the industrial sector, tourism, and manufacturing is going to be key for the investment promotion of that island.
Okay. Is there any advice that you would give to young millennials who are maybe considering following your path and entering the public service?
I'd use this opportunity not to give advice, but to be a call to young Bahamians. We have so many young Bahamians who are home. We have so many young Bahamians who are abroad that are talented. And I call them to national service, as I have done. We have so much to be appreciative of. When I market the Bahamas as a jurisdiction for investments, I market our people because that is our greatest asset. Our people throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It's not just New Providence, it's not just Grand Bahama, it's our entire family of islands.
That's amazing, and we love to see it. Okay, thank you very much, Phylicia.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Up next, I sit down with the Deputy Prime Minister to take a closer look at the nation's investments. Stay with us, we have more after this. Welcome back to A Closer Look. I'm Arabina Apia, and joining me now on set is Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper, who also happens to be the Minister of Tourism, Investment and Aviation. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so
for
much for
having
being
me.
here. So give us an idea of the thought process behind combining tourism and aviation with investments. Do you think that that was a natural fit? What was the thought process in that?
Well, let me first say that when we came to office 6 months ago, we wanted to send a very clear message that we are open for business. Open for business in the tourism space, but also in investments. I feel blessed to have the opportunity to cover both areas as well as aviation. I think it's a good fit. We have offices abroad already in tourism. We have a great team. We have agencies. We have excellent marketing and PR reach. And we've been able to leverage this already. So when we said we're open for business, we got an avalanche of applications. We've been able to approve more than $1 billion in our first 5 months. So far, so good. This is a good time for the Bahamas, and it's a good time for tourism and an even better time for investments.
We spoke earlier with your Director of Investments, Phylicia Hanna, and can you speak to why choosing her was a good decision? She happens to be the youngest woman to ever hold that role. Was that an intentional decision on behalf of the Davis administration?
Well, we have an opportunity really to bring new energy and innovation to everything we do. Phylicia brings that energy, that knowledge of investments, that knowledge of government, and we are going to rebrand Bahamas Investment Authority to Bahamas Invest, so that innovation will be important as we do this. We're going to do a number of roadshows looking at emerging markets. We're going to continue to talk with existing investors who we want to invest more. We are going to restart some of the projects that may have been stuck over a period of time. So she brings some institutional knowledge, and this is also going to be important as we advance what we're doing in the area of investments.
Okay, so Mr. Cooper, you yourself have had a lot of local success as a businessman. How do you see, or how does that experience influence your role as Minister of Investments?
Well, I always think of government as a big business with a supersized social responsibility element. It is important, therefore, that I apply all of the skills and training that I've gotten in business to what we do in terms of attracting investments. We always say that foreign direct investments is the fastest way to grow the economy. And when we look at our overall mandate to improve the fiscal circumstances of our country, we recognize in order to get 5% annual growth, it's important really to ramp up investments, or in business what we call business development. So the reality is that we are creating jobs, we are creating opportunities for entrepreneurs, and unless we are successful in doing that, improving the quality of life of our clients that happen to be the Bahamian people, then we're not achieving our true potential. So I am grateful and blessed to be responsible for investment at this pivotal time in the development of our country. Having experienced a very difficult time with COVID and Dorian, we're now restarting and rebounding, and it's an opportunity for me to bring all that energy and skills and training that I've received in the private sector now to the benefit of the Bahamian people. I'm delighted to be able to do so.
Okay, let's talk about foreign investments, because usually the public will hear about a major foreign investment and that translates into, say, jobs, usually in the hotel sector. In speaking to the director, we found out, that you guys are looking at other opportunities, other sectors. Let's talk about that a little bit more.
Well, we are open for business, not just in tourism, but in every major industry. In our Blueprint for Change, we talked about attracting new industries to the economy of the Bahamas. But let's be clear, in our lifetime, tourism will continue to be our driving force. It will continue to be the energy in our economy that create those jobs and opportunities. So firstly, we want to create linkages with tourism-related businesses. If we look at Bay Street, for example, we get 5 million cruise ship tourists who spend very little for many reasons. One of those reasons is a lack of product, authentically Bahamian products, restaurants, nightclubs, authentic tours and other experiences, cultural experiences. If we focus on these alone, it will show linkages to the tourism product. We are focused very heavily on creating even more using the Tourism Development Corporation as well as the Small Business Development Center to help to empower Bahamians to participate in this sector of the economy. If there has been one thing that we have not done as well as we could over the several decades of our leadership in the tourism industry in the region, it would be our lack of ability to have gotten more Bahamians involved in tourism and tourism-related sectors. So you asked about new industry, the blue economy, the green economy, shipping, logistics. We have a great infrastructural development in Grand Bahama, for example. For transshipment, we can do more in terms of the ship registry industry, having more Bahamians employed on ships and learning the maritimes. That's just one area. We've been able to attract, building upon our track record in financial services, we've been able to bring the crypto business to our country. I foreshadow that we are going to be the crypto capital of the world. And when we talk about new industries, when we talk about developments in our economy, we are focused as the Bahamas Invest on all industries. We have already attracted companies interested in building infrastructure, ports, agribusiness, as well as many other spin-offs to tourism, and of course hotels. We need more room capacity, so we're not going to neglect or forget the goose that lays the golden eggs.
Okay, now I don't know if you know this, but I'm a Grand Bahama girl, so I am going to ask you a question specifically for my Grand Bahama people, because I think there's always been a weird dichotomy. Grand Bahama has struggled between being a tourist destination and being an industrial sort of city. How is the government planning on finding the balance between those two elements and really giving Grand Bahama an opportunity to thrive?
Well, over the past 6 months, I've gained a new perspective and appreciation on Grand Bahama. Okay. Yes, there is the industrial sector. We can do more in this sector, but there's also tourism. There's the maritimes, there's the blue economy. We're working diligently to restart the economy of Grand Bahama. We're working on a deal to sell the Grand Lucayan Resort. That's looking optimistic. We're going to develop the airport through a PPP. Grand Bahama deserves to have a world-class airport that's going to benefit not just tourists, but residents and people who travel there for business. We're looking to break ground on a cruise port in East End, Grand Bahama, which raises the point that Grand Bahama is not just Freeport, it's East End and West End. So you can come and you can hopefully have the experience of a city once we get that energy back, but also go to a family island on the pristine East End or experience some of the cultural heritage of West End. Awesome fishing, awesome diving. We are really telling our own story again as it relates to the product in Grand Bahama, and I'm very excited about the prospects and what we're seeing already in terms of activity. So I think as a Grand Bahamian, you're going to be pleased with what we're doing.
I hope so. So can we talk a little bit about what we're doing to attract the right kind of investor as well? Because not all investment is good investment. So what are we doing to attract top quality investors, persons who want to be in the Bahamas for the long haul, persons who want to be in the family islands for the long haul?
Well, we have articulated our blueprint for change. What we would like to see in the major islands of the Bahamas. For example, in Miguana, we foreshadowed that we would like to see a shipping hub in the south. For Ragged Island, we wanted to be the fishing capital of the southern Bahamas. Exuma, of course, is the pristine, most magnificent arena for boating and yachting and diving and fishing. We hope to be able to expand that. The point I am making is that we want projects that are aligned with what we want to achieve as a country. We don't want cruise ships in Exuma. We don't want skyscrapers. In Grand Bahama, there's the industrial sector. We want to advance that. In Andres, we have thousands of acres of unexplored land that might be used for the development of agribusiness. The list goes on. We are an archipelago with significant strengths, significant diversity. We're going to continue to explore this, but investors must know that we are building a country for the future that must be sustainable. In Bahamas Invest, we are going to establish a compliance unit in Bahamas Invest. We are going to be proactive. We have refined and retuned the National Economic Council, which really is designed to process faster and make it easier to do business. So we're doing all of these things together to be able to drive the investment industry and to attract the investments that we want, that's sustainable and aligned with our national goals.
Mm-hmm. What should Bahamians now be doing to prepare themselves for all of these investments that will hopefully come on board in the next several years?
Unless we get more Bahamians engaged in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of investing themselves, then we would not have achieved the potential that's possible in our country. So that's going to be our primary focus. Jobs is important. We are creating many jobs in the construction phase as well as in the operations of many of these investments. We will state continuously in the heads of agreement that we don't just want jobs. We want entrepreneurial business investment opportunities for Bahamians. This is how we are going to create wealth. This is how we're going to expand the economic pie. And this is how we're going to make the investment arena more sustainable for all of us. And I say to investors all the time, the objective really is to live and work in a harmonious community when everyone prosper. It's good for the investor that's coming in.
Now, as you can imagine, we have so many more questions that we could be asking, but obviously we can't get to them all in this segment. So the conversation continues. Please visit our social media and drop down in the comments and tell us how you feel. Pitch some questions. What would you like to hear from the Minister of Investment? So, Minister, we do have to have you back at some point soon to chat more about this and take a closer look. Awesome. We'll be back with more of a closer look after this.
Do you have diabetes? Here are some key things that you can do to keep track of your health. Know your numbers. Know your blood sugar values. Ensure that your doctor hears what your blood sugar numbers are like between visits. What is your HbA1c? Is it 6.5 or lower? This should be tested at least twice a year. Know your BUN and creatinine numbers. These tell you about the health of your kidneys and should be tracked annually. Know your status. Make sure that your healthcare provider assesses your feet at every appointment. Make sure that you have a heart tracing or ECG done every year. And make sure that you have an eye exam every year to ensure that your vision is not impacted by your diabetes. Talk to your healthcare provider today about how you can live healthier and longer with diabetes. Your health is in your hands. This message is brought to you by PAHO Bahamas, the Ministry of Health, and the Healthy Bahamas Coalition.
As citizens of a small country, it's easy for us to fall into the trap of believing that we cannot make a real impact. What we've learned tonight, however, is that there are opportunities being provided in various sectors that can help push us forward to become major players in the global arena. We have to do our part. We have to make ourselves ready. What does that look like? It looks like doing your research. It looks like planning, and it looks like taking advantage of every opportunity available. I'm glad that tonight we were able to take a closer look at those opportunities, and hopefully someone out there is inspired to act. That's our show tonight. Thank you so much to the Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper for being here and shedding some light on the future of the country's investments. Thank you to our millennial in government Phylicia Hanna, and thank you for watching. Join us next time as we take a closer look at more of the stories you care about. I'm Arabina Apia. Good night, everyone.